Hello and good afternoon. This is Stuart Greenfield talking from Cows. This is my race briefing for the Round the Island race, which starts early in the morning on Saturday. And I think my main comment right now is that perhaps, although you may not feel it right now, but the wind will perhaps rule the tide this year. But let's get into it. And as I go through it, hopefully you'll be able to gain quite a lot of information to make a very interesting and challenging race, which hopefully everybody will have a great day out. So, firstly, let's have a look at the history of the race. Well, Round the Island race was started in 1931 when just 25 boats took part. The winner was Peter Brett on just a 22-foot Cornish fishing boat, which is quite interesting. Over the years, the race has grown to a peak of over 1,200 boats, which is equals to about 10,000 sailors in actual fact. This year, due to many things in the racing world and the sailing world, I think we're down to about 750, 770 boats. So, great race as ever around the Isle of Wight. The challenges are lots of boats early in the morning. Tide just about to turn to take you down to the Needles. So the start, the Needles, St Catherine's and Dunnose Point, Bembridge Ledge and Ryde Sands are all the key corners which you're going to have to look out for. So moving on, who have been the winners? Well, since 2025, as you'll see here, it's been big boats. It's been the most modern and most technology-driven yachts around, which is TP52s and Volvo 70s, and they have won the lot for 2025, 24, and 23. Dark and Stormy was a GP42, very well sailed actually in 2022, and the smallest boat which was won recently was Eeyore, which was an Alacrity 18-foot bilge-keeled boat, which Joe Richards built, and he's always great at creating incredibly quick small boats and loves the Round the Island race, and I'm sure he'll be out there this year trying to win again. So it hasn't been a small boat race for many years. I'm not going to predict right now whether it will be a small or big boat race. I have a sneaky feeling that perhaps with a neap tide and the wind the way it is and everything else, it's a little bit difficult to predict, but hopefully by the end of this presentation you'll have your own views. So this year, as I said, there's a total of 774 boats out there. IRC is 285, and ISC, which is the Island Sailing Club, who give ratings to cruising boats so they can race, is near 400, which is quite interesting. And then we've got some big boats, some Mokras at around 20. We've got some classics, not as many classics as normal, 15, and then all the others together, which include all the fleet boats and Sunfast and everything else, make about 50. So still a massive race and still one of the biggest races in the world. So cracking on. There's the course, as I've said already. You go down from the start, Royal Yacht Squadron line, and the outer distance mark is South Bramble, I think, and then we're down to Hurst, and we're around the Needles, over St Catherine's, along past Dunnose, up to Bembridge, and then finally up past the No Man's Land Fort, Ryde Sands, and then up the East Solent to the finish. North and south lines, as you know, there. And obviously it's important to read your race instructions as early as you can, because there's quite a lot of detail in there and quite a few changes to the world racing rules, as it were. So, key things to look out for. Obviously, everyone talks about it, the Needles and the Goose Rock and the SS Varvassi wreck. Now, there are two routes, really. One of them is a route which goes very close to the Needles itself, avoiding Goose Rock, as you can see on the chart here. And the other route is further out, leaving the Varvassi to port and giving it some room before you come round onto a very close reach or even a beat once you come around the corner, because the wind will be taking you down. The needles with the kite up, most likely you need to get rid of the kite and prepare for a headsail, most likely, as you come round. And therefore, a lot of people doing a lot of things on deck, a lot of things going on. Make sure the navigator is looking closely exactly where you are. There's no point taking a risk here. You've just got to look very carefully on what route you want to take and make the decision early. Either go outside the wreck or go inside and take that route, making sure that you don't go too close to Goose Rock. So, and there's a picture there just showing what it looks like, or what it did look like when it first went down, and also how at low water, obviously, it's almost high water when you come around the Needle. So ultimately, there will be some water over the wreck, but even so, not enough for an IRC-1 race boat with 2 to 2.2 meter keel. So be careful. So next thing is to look at when we get to St. Cat's. And once again, there's two routes here. There's a route which takes you in close to St. Catherine's itself, and then you might well have to beat all the way along the beach here. The tide turns at 2:10, so most people will get there against the tide. But remembering there's a lot of fairly big overfalls here. They won't be as big as on the spring tide, but there will be some overfalls. So going on the outer route, you'll be probably, in or out, you're going to hit some overfalls as you come around St. Catherine's. Whether you go further out or further in, I'll show you on the routing in a minute exactly what they think, what the routings, what the Gribs think you should do. But it could be, depending on the wind, it could be a beat all the way along towards Dunnose. But you've got to be careful of the wind shadow there and whether you'll lose all the breeze as well. So this is one of the main tactical parts of the race. As it says here, there's 2.5 knots going to the west at 12 o'clock. So a lot of boats in IRC 1, 2, well, 0, 1 and 2 and 3 perhaps will be around in this position at that time. So there's quite a lot of tide. So no particular predictions on what to do. It may be that it'll be better to go further south to get some clear air and then do one tack, but we can look at the routing in a second on that. Then, once you've got round Dunnose and you're going past Sandown and Ventnor, past Ventnor and then past Sandown towards Bembridge. Once you're around Bembridge, obviously Bembridge is the only buoy you've got to go around on the course. You've got to make a decision on exactly how you get up to Ryde. Now, depending on what time you arrive there and the tide turns against you at 3:10, there will be tide against you. So you've got to make a decision where the breeze is, what the angle is, and how close you want to go to the towards Bembridge and Seaview. And obviously, a lot of boats will be going inside No Man's Land Fort, which you can see is here, and then you've got to decide whether you can take a risk going inside the red beacon, the red post, which gives you the turning point to go around Ryde Sands, or whether you cut inside depending on the depth of the water at that point. So this is another little tricky area where you need to tactically be very careful. Most important thing there is to look at your speed over the ground and just make sure that by going in, that you're not actually gaining much speed. You might as well stay out if the tide is, when you go around there, is just on the turn and there isn't much against you. So that's pretty crucial part of the race. The last part of the race, it does appear it's going to be a spinnaker reach all the way to the finish. And once again, the routing says various things depending on what time you get there. If you've got a lot of tide against you, obviously you want to go into the shallower part of the Solent, which will be on the island's side, of course, and the routing shows that in a moment. So let's just move on. Synoptic chart, quite important. As you know, we are in a heat wave right now, so there's an awful lot of energy in the atmosphere, a lot of heat being generated, and it's definitely going to be a pretty warm day on land in the UK, although hopefully with this 10 to 15 knots of easterly breeze it'll be cooler for those racing. But as you can see, we've got isobars which are predicting 10 to 15 knots from the east northeast with a little bit of east in it, perhaps veering during the day. So I'm pretty sure at the moment that this picture isn't going to change much between now and the race. So that's why I'm doing this recording now, actually, because I think it's going to be, in terms of the barometric view of the atmosphere, it's going to be much the same. What happens on the day depends on how hot it gets and whether we're going to get some wind shadows, some sea breezes, and some gusts and some holes. And that's the other thing which no one can predict on the island around the island race, and that's why everyone loves it, I suppose. So that's the atmospheric look, and let's crack on from there. Just reminding you, the picture on the left is Saturday midnight, and this is Saturday 12, which is basically once you're around the back of the Isle of Wight, hopefully. So you can look at that in more detail. Obviously crucial to this race is the tides. Now fortunately this year we're just 2 days off Neeps, so it's going to be less important some years and I think the Island Sailing Company try to avoid doing this race in spring tides almost every year. So tide is important, obviously crucial to boats which are hoping to win on IRC and are smaller, and the tide is going to be turning when they're racing, as opposed to a lot of the bigger boats which are going to get round in one tide. So if we just look carefully at the images here, at the start at 7 o'clock, the tide is slightly against the early starters. By 11 o'clock, it's a full ebb out of the Solent, which is against you going across past the beaches of Compton and Atherton before you get to St Catherine's, when the tide is probably at its maximum against you, as you can see in the picture 1 and 2 here. By 2 o'clock, we're probably into a slacker condition, and this might be a good opportunity for smaller boats to get round Dunnose without too much problem. And then as we go further into the afternoon, you can see that by 15:40, the tide is taking you round Bembridge, and then as you come round Bembridge, it'll be against you, strongly against you, all the way to the finish. And this is where some of the smaller boats will struggle, and some of the bigger boats are going to get home before they actually get a foul tide. So normal fare for the around the island race. So that's the tidal situation. Now let's move on and let's have a look at some of the models that we're using. So plenty of wind models from GFS, EC, Icon, Arome and Arpege. All of them are relevant, all of them are useful. I tend to use the 3 that are highlighted in green here, and also I use an ensembler which takes almost all of the models which are available for the area and does a routing against each one and then creates an average, which is quite an interesting thing. But once again, the Isle of Wight and what happens along the beach and what happens with in the Solent sometimes is not predicted very well by these models. So that's why, once again, the Isle of Wight creates a great round the island race. So here's the first model using GFS, and it gives a finish time of 3:30 for a Sunfast 3300 with a rating around 1, or in fact in this case 1.025. So you can see what it's saying here. It's saying a reach or run, almost a run, all the way down the Solent, rum line down towards the Needles, and then once again almost a rum line all the way down to St Catherine's before potentially one little tack in. But that's mainly because I've put a waypoint on St Catherine's. If that waypoint wasn't there, you'll probably find it would tell you to keep going out until you tack in deeper water to the south of St Catherine's. And then there's one major leg, which is a reach. I don't know whether it'll be a spinnaker reach or a code 0 or white sail reach. all the way to Bembridge, almost on a run line. And then once around Bembridge, it's almost a run line all the way to that waypoint I put on the end of the Ride sands there. And of course, you may decide that you want to cut inside that to get a bit of advantage. Also, because of the time then, the tide's against you, it's saying go left into the bay here in the Isle of Wight, which is Fishbourne, where the ferry goes. So you're in shallow water before heading up a little bit, coming in close to Norris before the finish. So that's, it seems quite straightforward. It doesn't seem that problematic. Doesn't seem to be a lot of beating. And it could be a very nice race, finishing at 3:30. That's not bad. So let's just click on and see what we've got. By the way, the mean wind speed is 13.5 knots, maximum gust is 18, and the average maximum true wind speed, which is a sort of a mixture of the two, I suppose they're saying might be up to 15. So that's quite interesting. So ECM, once again, it's not much different in that it's saying at the start you might want to put a couple of jibes in here to get closer into Newtown Creek and around Gurnard to get out of the tide. As the tide turns, you come out into the mainstream before getting back into Yarmouth to take the additional tidal boost round Sconce over to Hurst, and then run line down the Red Buoys to the Needles. And obviously, as I said before, make your own decision of the Needles. Do you go inside or do you go outside? Make it early and don't hesitate to do the right thing. And then this is showing a complete run line all the way out, into quite deep water off the south side of the island. In fact, due south of Ventnor here, before you take a tack and go close in at Dunnose, and then once again just taking a little bit of a left route into Sandown before coming out, close in under the cliffs here, and then round Bembridge. Once again, it's saying pretty much run line to the Ride Sand Red Post, and then inshore all the way up to the finish. That's interesting. I'm not obviously with the northeasterly or easterly breeze, then there won't be too much of an issue with the wind around Norris. But it's saying here this is a finish time of 4:20, which is an hour later than the last model, which is interesting. So there's an hour difference, which is a huge amount in this race. So this is how the models change, really. So now we move on to the ensemble view, and as you can see here, we've got all the different models showing all the different routes, and the main route will be the one where you can see, which is purple with the showing the tidal and wind arrows on it. Once again, it says go south after St. Cat's down to a jibe point. Well, no, sorry, Barroway, a jibe point here. Let's get that right. That'll be a tack there. So you're tacking here, and then you're taking a leg all the way to Bembridge, as we said before. And then it's pretty much as the other two models as well. So what we've got is a fit between all the models and what they're saying. What actually happens off St. Cat's and Dunnose and Ventnor is very much dependent on what's going to happen to the wind in this area under the cliffs, and whether it's unwise to try and get, if your tide's against you, which it will be for most people, if it's unwise to get in there against the tide without any breeze. And I'm saying, that's why I said I think the breeze is more important. So go south to get the breeze on starboard, and then you tack on on port, and then tack on to starboard to get back in to Dunnose. And this will depend on where you are in the fleet, what other people are doing, and obviously mark one eyeball on the day what's actually happening on the water. So let's have a look at the next one. So key points are mean true wind speed is 13.4 knots. The models seem to be working together. True wind direction is between 51 and 83 degrees, east northeast. True wind speed 12 to 14. And for a sun-fast boat with an IRC about 1-ish, we're saying that the average SOG, speed over the ground, for the whole race is between 5.8 and 6.4, so the average is 6.2. And the duration is, they're saying anything between 8 and 9 hours. And the standard deviation, they're saying on all the models, all the grid models, is just 15 minutes. So that shows that they're all pretty much saying the same thing. Although none of them really know what's going to happen, off-ride in the middle of the afternoon when we might have a sea breeze competing against a gradient breeze. But that'll be the interesting thing about the whole race, I think. So, as I've said, models are generally in agreement. Some challenges depending on sea breeze, as I've said, and this could depend on the on-land temperature, which could create wind holes and gusts, etc. So, there we have it. My final thoughts, which are just general thoughts really, is all this information I've produced here is freely available. I'm not a magician. I'm just using what's out there to put it all together, and having done the race about 25 times, maybe 30 times, and never won it, by the way. I know exactly how easy it is to screw up in this race, especially when it's hot and especially when you've been out there for a long time. So the routing, all the grids are freely available. I'm using a routing software. There are, Expedition and Adrena and all sorts of other apps are available now. In fact, the market is full of routing software. All of them do the same thing, which is just to work out, based on your polar diagram, tide and wind, how far you'll get in a particular time, in which direction, and which is the best direction closest to what your waypoint is. The maths is all the same, and the difference might be in the user interface and how you and the degree of accuracy it's using to do the math. So hopefully most routing softwares tend to give you a reasonable result. You could do it manually with a pencil and a chart and a tidal atlas, which is what I did for most of my sailing life, actually. So this is just a bonus now. So as I've said in number 3, I've added my own interpretations, having raced it a few times. Routing has been discussed. And I think the key point for this race is that enjoy the race and realise that, however much you think a plan might come together, it's actually what happens on the water. There will be wind holes. There will be a lot of boats around who will be taking your wind. There will be some instances, no doubt, on the water which will affect things. But I think it could be quite a fast race. I think there could be some quite good wind. And I think everyone might have a great time. So hopefully this is useful. Just going on to the final screen. And that's FirstBeat. That's Stuart Greenfield. That's the race as I see it. Have a lot of fun. Thank you very much for listening.